talk a lot about how to be successful in relationships and how to bring a healthy sense of masculinity and integration, polarity into the relationship. And fitness and health play a huge part in this whole puzzle. So,
Right.
hi.
Hey, how's
Turn the
it going?
volume up.
I figured it out. So
Awesome.
yeah, made it work. But
Yes, I was just telling everyone that I'm releasing an ebook about how to use social media to vet for a healthy partner instead of dating apps, and I'm excited to release this. I don't know if you know because I don't think I told you. So that's coming out soon as can be. I don't know, December for sure.
nice. No, that's a good one. And I'm assuming it's like taking a look at the person's social media to see kind of who they are.
Yes, for sure. Because the thing is that, excuse me, you can see like the 360 of a person's lifestyle and character for the most part. I mean, yes, you see a bit of the highlights, but if you stick around long enough and you do the right type of vetting, which is why this book is so helpful, because it will teach you what to look for and how to interact with people to get that information. Like, what kind of person are they really, not what are they just presenting out there. And so, using different like content creators like myself and yourself, like if they follow you and they align with your values, right, they have like comments on your posts that obviously share. It's kind of like Twitter, how Twitter is really good at getting at the person's like internal thoughts, but the same thing goes with these more visual social media platforms too. So it's how to leverage them because they have such great algorithms too that put you right in front of the right people.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense too, because I was thinking like, okay, well, usually I mean, I guess for like the average person's social media page, they're posting their highlights. And so just taking a look at that is not going to be enough. You definitely have to go into, okay, who is this person following? What type of comments are they leaving on whose pages? And like who is showing up in their feed or their For You page here, I guess on TikTok. So that makes a lot of sense. And I never thought of it that way, but I know you've put some things in there that they really need to keep an eye out for. So there's things in this ebook that you probably wouldn't think of, likely wouldn't think of. So that's exciting though. That's a good resource. And
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. So
Well, something else you might not know, Matt, I have this is not obviously for you, but for anyone you're talking to, I have like any of your clients or people on your page or whatever. I have a little section in my Instagram page that on my highlights for singles specifically. And I ask people in my stories to post if they're single and they're ready for a healthy connection, what's their name, age, city, country, and handle. And so I post this to a static highlight. So I'm building a database, a public database of people who are identifying as ready to vet and connect with someone. So I've already got like 50 people and it's about split between men and women. So anyone can just follow me on Instagram and go to that singles highlight and just flip through it like a little lookbook and click on the handle and go follow that person, connect with them, interact, and vet them.
That's a great idea. And that's the thing too, is like I would trust like that I would be getting the high quality type of people because they're following you, and I would trust that. So that's a great idea. That's another great resource. I didn't know you were doing that. So it's definitely helpful. And I always find myself, especially on these lives, where I'm telling people like, hey, y'all, go follow me on Instagram too, because there's things on Instagram that I can do and that I can offer that can't really do here on TikTok, unfortunately. Like DMing me. Like you can't DM me on TikTok unless we both follow each other. But on Instagram, you can message me, and I like to hear from people. So I guess one thing that we can do to kind of grow I guess the viewership that we have going on here is, y'all, if y'all could send out some invites if you're listening to this. I don't know if likes help out the algorithm. If y'all can drop likes on this thing, I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah.
dropping a comment will help and whatnot. So if y'all could take the time to do that, that would be really helpful. We would really appreciate it.
Is there anything I can do on my end? Do I share it too?
Well, I have no idea. I know that let me see. That's the only thing that I know of to do is to have people like the post and to share it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll keep going, and then it'll grow, I guess. At least that's what happened to mine the other day. I think I got all the way down to like 20 viewers, but then we started going and I started talking and it went all the way up to like 150, 200 viewers. So it'll pick up some steam. So, but yeah, what we wanted to talk about today, it was a few things. So mainly it was how health and fitness, how it influences your relationships and what does it have to do with masculinity, femininity, all of that, when it comes to like being, attractive, but also just, I think to me, mostly is it allows you to provide or at least offer the best version of yourself, uh, going into your relationship. Because here's the thing is when, and I was telling this the other day to somebody, and this is kind of off subject, but kind of not. So,
go for it.
So before, a lot of times, one of the biggest issues that you see in marriages is when people get married, they just let themselves go. They think, oh, okay, I've already, gotten here, I've crossed the finish line, no more. Don't have to work for it anymore. And so I guess the advice that I was given was like, okay, look, go ahead and not only develop that healthy lifestyle yourself, but if you and your partner can both do it together before you get married, then you already have that momentum going. You don't have to worry about it when you get into a marriage, because one of the biggest issues I see, or at least I hear from other men who are married, or it's a question that I get often. You may get it as well, but it's, hey, how do I get my partner to work out? How do I get how do I get them in the gym without telling them, hey, they need to get into the gym? And that's definitely challenging, and it's different for men and women. So what is your take on that? Like, I guess before getting into marriage and then after getting into marriage.
Well, yeah, I kind of focus on the before part, on the vetting, right? So you're going to pick someone who shares the values, and it doesn't have to be like the same thing that you like to do, but you like to be healthy and fit and active and all of that. So yeah, you're going to want to make sure that the person is not just, doing it to impress you, that it's one of their core principles or values in life. And that's going to take care of the biggest part of the issue. And then once you're settled in and you sometimes get complacent, you have different priorities. Sometimes it's not even about like dropping the ball, like intentionally, like just, getting lazy. But for instance, I'll use my personal example. So injuries or, babies and stuff like that, the whole pregnancy issue, it can shift your activity level and like how that might affect the relationship too, right? So it can affect your intimacy, it can affect your attraction. And it's important to, I think, be a little bit flexible and understand like why something is happening. But if it's just because you're lazy and you've kind of dropped the ball, then you shouldn't let it get too far before you address it. So it's easy to be like, I want to spend some quality time with you. Let's go hike a mountain, or let's go do something fun and active together. It doesn't have to be in the gym.
Right. Exactly. And so I guess for men and women, it's a little bit different in how they approach it, would you say? And how would you describe it?
Approach at telling your partner that they need to be more active specifically?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think women oftentimes will, when they talk to me about like I wouldn't say losing attraction, but maybe like they're feeling like their partner is developing the dad bod, like they
Yeah.
kind of are starting to develop that. They may confide in me and ask like what they should do. So I'll usually, again, I advise them to really focus on the quality time together and sharing experiences that you enjoy that are going to be more active. So the first thing is to get off the couch, out of the house, and doing something together.
Yeah.
So I would just frame it as wanting to spend that time with you, like that's something that I want to share with you. If we're always doing things separately, then it's going to create that distance between us. So also it's important to have like those regular, I call them couple huddles. So you could go in for your huddle on a regular basis and you can kind of keep track of where you're at. Like, how are you on your goals? What are the things that maybe need a little bit of work, or what are the things that are going really well? I mean, you want it to be a positive conversation, but that is a place for you to do the maintenance on your relationship so you can identify these things and bring them up in a way that it's already in a safe container, so it's not going to be so jarring or maybe offensive, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you make a great point. And I recently had a lady reach out to me. She wanted to get her husband back in shape, back on a routine. And we had a meeting, so I could discuss it further in detail and whatnot. So what I was telling her is there, and it wasn't just specifically for her situation, but for most women who want to get their husband in action and whatnot. And I told her, frame it in a way that uh, will speak to his ego, not in a way that will hurt it, but will challenge
Mm-hmm.
it and make him want to do better, like where it will entice his ego. Because as men, we do have ego. Like, we have to acknowledge that it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's good to have a healthy ego. So what I was telling her is like, okay, but it's much different than when you get him this, because here's what she wanted to do. She wanted to get him a gift of personal training for Christmas. And I was like, this is a great gift, but it's how you frame it as well. Because someone, if someone is getting that gift, they're probably taking a hint like, oh, okay, well, am I a fat ass now? Like, are you telling me that I need to get into the gym? But if you put it in terms of, hey, I know that being a father is very important to you, and uh, you've talked to me about not being is energetic lately, or how you feel about the example you're setting to your sons and things like that. Those are the things that, if you approach it in that way of saying, hey, I think this is a great way because we've been talking about this. I think this is a great way to get on track with that and to feel better about yourself and better about the type of father you're being and the example you're setting for your son. So I figured this would be really helpful. Then he's gonna be like appreciative of it and like, oh, okay, that's my woman trying to help me get better, rather than trying to take a negative hint from it. So I,
Yeah.
I figured that was probably a good way to go about it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's seeing the laziness and lack of activity as a symptom, eh, of something else, right? And so it's
Yeah.
looking at the bigger picture and really addressing the context and the benefits, right, of becoming more active and strong and being able to focus on fitness, not just for superficial aesthetic reasons, although those are valid too, but looking at the bigger picture about health and longevity and like you said, having the energy to be an active parent, especially as you age, right? I mean, we're seeing people starting families much later on in life. So if you don't have like that foundation of a healthy, strong core fitness and health, physicality, then it's going to be harder to be a parent the older you are.
No doubt, no doubt. And I'd say that's probably uh, one of the biggest issues that we have culturally, because not everybody has developed that healthy lifestyle, and this is more so getting into the topic that we originally planned this for. So here's the way that I put it to people is you have your mind and you have your body, and we often talk about them in as if they're separate, but they actually are one. What one does affects the other. And so what I tell people as well is that your body provides the environment for your mind. And of course, your mind is how you interpret things, how you perceive things, and then of course how you express yourself as well in many other aspects. So think about how that is going to be affected if this environment is polluted, trash, dirty, however you want to put it. Your mind is going to have a difficult time thriving. It's really going to be just trying to survive. And you're going to have negative effects like irritability in your mood, not being able to pay attention for as long, things like that. So when you do get your body healthy and you provide that healthy environment for your mind, it's able to thrive. And so think about how that's going to affect your overall mood. Think about how that's going to affect how you present yourself, the energy that you bring into a room, especially when it comes to your relationship, your ability to communicate, your ability to listen, which is super important. And so I guess there's a lot of people who don't realize that aspect, and it's tough to explain it to them. It's tough to explain to anybody, hey, this is what you're missing out on, without them really experiencing it. I think that's the biggest challenge that I have, at least, of trying to illustrate. Okay, hey, here is what you're missing.
Yeah.
And so, how would you go about that? How would you describe that?
Well, I mean, it's internalized confidence, right? It's a way for you to follow through with something, to maintain a discipline, and to achieve goals that are within your control when so many things in this life are out of our control. So, yeah, it teaches you so much, right? Like sticking to it, consistency, like not giving up a third of the way through because you're not seeing results. So it's about a way of life, not necessarily just to achieve the outcome as fast as possible. So it changes a whole lot of things, a whole lot of your habits, like your sleep and your diet, and how you move about your day, and the things that you don't do anymore because you're spending time and investing in these aspects. So it does sort of shift your life completely. And that's why it's so important to talk about this with your partner, because if you start going in different directions,
Mm-hmm.
it can really be like a wedge that's driven between the two of you, because you're like night and day, and that can deteriorate the bond in the relationship. So I definitely think it's an important issue. And I mean, I know that you have always been interested in like relationship issues and stuff like that, but the work that you do with the fitness and training with people, like how do you I don't what is the experience you've had with the clients that you've worked with in regards to the challenges that they've come upon in the process of changing their lifestyle like that?
Yeah, it's replacing those habits. That's and getting into a routine, and actually getting past the obstacles, the mental hurdles of, oh, this is hard, because it's really not. It's really not difficult at all. We just have gotten used to things being. We've just gotten used to going down the path of least resistance, and so
Yeah.
trying to decondition that and to raise the standard, it's difficult for anyone, especially when things have been so easy and you've been so used to doing things a certain way. Because here's the thing, when we're kids, we think everything is to be playful and enjoyable and a good time, and
Yeah.
we don't have as much responsibility. And of course, with age, we're supposed to increase that amount of responsibility that we have, but we don't do that with dieting. We tend to eat like kids all the way through adulthood. We have no sort of structure, no sort of system of trying to decide what to eat, rather than, oh, what do I feel like eating? That's how kids eat. Kids are like, oh, it's tasty, eat that. And of course, when you're an adult, you have to grow and you have to get past that. You have to say, okay, why am I eating this? There has to be a certain purpose to this meal, because if not, you're going to get the results that you probably don't want to deal with. And it's trying to get that point across to people, to let them know, like, hey, this is why we're doing this. Other than, oh yeah, we want to lose fat. And so that's just one of the aspects of that's challenging of trying to get people to change. Yeah. But I do want to address Nellie's comment here. She asked how much it costs. It definitely doesn't cost almost $3,000, Nellie. If you want to message me on Instagram, I'd be happy to go over all that information with you in detail, because it really just comes down to what do you need, and so being able to discuss that with you would be a lot more important. But yeah, Taylor, that's basically the gist of it, is trying to get rid of those old habits and reprogram yourself or recondition yourself to these healthy habits.
Well, I'll tell you, like, from my experience, I work more with men than women. It's kind of starting to even out now, which is pretty exciting, but I do focus on men. My brand is really focused on working with men. And when I see a man, or I'm working with a man who's struggling with their relationships, I would say more than not, they're also struggling in their health and fitness and, that confidence and strength, all those physical attributes. And so I won't say it's like, exactly correlated, like 1-to-1, but it's important. And the way you do one thing is kind of the way that you do everything, right? So a person, when a man takes it seriously, he's focused and he's driven, he's ambitious, he's clear on his goals and disciplined and consistent. Not only is he going to do that in regards to his own life, like as an individual, but he puts that into his relationship as well. And that's what it takes, like what you were saying, in order to have a successful relationship, is taking the time and having the focused attention on building the relationship intentionally. And so that skill is going to be mimicked in how they approach their own lifestyle choices, right? And so men who are more disciplined and consistent like that in their own fitness and health are also very successful in their relationships. So it goes hand in hand. And the men often that are struggling in their relationships too. So it's important to see the link and to attend to this when you're single, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so lonely, I want a partner. I'm like, well, what are you doing now? Because now you don't have a relationship, but you can do so much with the time that you have, and getting your finances and fitness and all of those basics, which are not like, unimportant, but they're just fundamental aspects of who you are as a person and developing a successful life, then do it now. This is when you have the most time and flexibility to focus on you.
Yes, absolutely. It's a lot. Once you get into a relationship, it's a little bit more difficult to get those habits started. Because, and that's exactly what I meant by, hey, go ahead and get that developed now before you get married, because if you both aren't on the same page when you get into marriage, it is very difficult. And that also comes into the making sure that you find a supportive partner comes into play with that as well, which is kind of a different subject. But I guess it's not necessarily that your partner isn't supportive. It's just difficult when someone hasn't gotten to the point of, okay, I need to change. You both have to be at that point if you want to, both get into that lifestyle change. It's very difficult to convince the other person. But yeah, I guess what was, I was going to bring up a point about, men. So men, it's very difficult for men as far as developing that masculine, aspect of yourself, the masculine energy. It's super important to develop discipline. a lot of men have a difficult time getting that discipline developed. It's the best time to do it, of course, when you're single, and women can tell, they can sense that energy about you, like, okay, this man's got it together. Well, what areas of your life are usually lacking in that structure, that organization, and that discipline? Well, when it's your health and fitness, you can tell. You can look at somebody and say, okay, that dude doesn't take care of himself, and that's not a good look. So I think it's super important for men, and women as well, of course. Guys can look and tell. It's just a little bit different as far as what guys look at versus what women look at as well. And what would you say that difference would be?
I think for men, I don't know if they can tell like how hard a woman works at it. Like I don't think they have that insight. They probably assume some people work really hard when they don't. They just have like really good genetics sometimes,
Right.
and assume that other people, the opposite is true too. But I think when it comes to aesthetics, what I find, because in my matchmaking, I don't like using that term, but when I have a form that people fill out, they send pictures to me so that I can see what they like. Women are they're tricky because they usually have like a type. Everyone kind of comes to the table with a type that I have to break through. But women aren't really interested so much in like classically handsome, like attractive, whatever you might think that is. They like quirky, they like different looks, but men can be much more particular about what they look for. So I don't know. I think with women, it's more about the inside, right? Like it
Yep.
shows the discipline, shows the consistency, because also what I think women are really worried about is impulse control.
Yeah.
And I don't know how conscious this is, but when you can see and get to know a man who says no and has boundaries because he's adhering to like objective standards, that gives them reassurance that he's not just going to act out on a whim or,
Yeah.
hook up with some girl and do something like that,
Yep.
right? Like you see that discipline and you're like, okay, he's trustworthy. And women really need that in order to put
Feel
their
safe.
vulnerability on the table.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, because women need to feel safe, like, and they find that safety in masculinity. Masculinity is protective energy. It's comforting, and a lot of men don't get that. They don't get that. Oh, by doing this, I'm making my woman feel unsafe, which is not attractive to her. Like, they want to come to you to get that reassurance. They want to come to you for that comfort, and that safety. And so when you show that you have that discipline, that you're able to have that impulse control, it's comforting to them. Like, so that makes total sense. And yeah, I agree. It's when men look at a guy who is, fit or healthy or whatever, they're not looking necessarily at just the physical attractiveness of it. I think they are looking at of about, like, okay, what type of man is he, for being able to handle himself or being able to look like that and remain in shape like that. Whereas with men, when we see a fit woman, for the most part, we're just visual. We're like, oh, she looks good,
Yeah.
And so I think women are a little bit more aware, because women are a lot more detail oriented than men, at least from my experience. And it's I think that's also a challenge that men have, as well as, um, it's I think masculinity also has a lot to do with awareness. Would you agree? Um, where
Yeah.
because here's the thing is, like, women want to be noticed. Like, if your woman goes out and gets her hair done, or nails done or something, she's doing it because she wants you to notice. And if we don't notice that, it's like we don't notice her, and that's not good. And so being able to pay attention to those details, I think that's one other thing, that you learn developing a healthy lifestyle is you start to pay attention to the menu. You start to pay attention to these ingredients, and you start paying attention to the things that you put into your body because you realize how it affects you. And so, I think it's super important for men to be able to develop that aspect as well. And did you want to elaborate on that at all?
Well, one thing that we haven't really touched on yet that came to mind was it was a post that I wrote, I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago. And I was talking about how it's, we make those lists sometimes about like what to look for in a man or a woman. And instead of focusing on attractiveness, what I said was I emphasized strength, right? Like fitness and attractiveness, strength, particularly because a man who is physically weaker than the woman, it's going to be very hard for there to be healthy polarity in that relationship, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be physically stronger at a minimum than the woman, right? I mean, I think that seems kind of common sense. Like there's a whole meme about like if you can't lift up your woman, then you need to hit the gym or whatever. So I think that there's a lot of truth to that. It doesn't mean that the woman shouldn't be active or that she shouldn't lift weights. Of course, you should be active, you should exercise, and you should be strong too. But the polarity is it's gonna invert, right? If she becomes more interested in strength-based things and achievement-based things and those masculine dominant activities than the man. So if you're disconnected from that in yourself, you have to really look at what's going on. Like, why are you disconnected from your masculinity? Is there, a father wound there? There's a lot that could have led to that, but you have to have that insight. You have to reflect and you have to do some of that work because it could be a major block to why you aren't succeeding or able to meet those kinds of goals. Why it's not, I don't know, you're just sort of giving up on yourself. Maybe you don't feel good enough. Maybe you have low self-esteem, and it's just like a compounding self-fulfilling prophecy that you're just, perpetuating. And ultimately you're going to get like broken up with, and then you feel so sorry for yourself. So it's ultimately like one of those intervention points that is so meaningful and significant. Like if you can focus on that and be more productive, it doesn't have to be about wealth too. Like a lot of times we talk about resources, but I think it's just having a purpose, having that mission, and having something bigger than you that you're working towards, that drives you, that fire in your belly. But if you don't know what it is, just get active. Just, push yourself in the gym or whatever activity, sport, BJJ, whatever it is. I think that's an easy way, low-hanging fruit, for you to just lean into, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell people who want to turn their lives around. One of the best place to start is your body. Yeah. It's in the gym because it's like you said, I like the way that you put it. It's the lowest hanging fruit, and it's tangible as well. Those are tangible, real results, and it's actionable immediately. You could go in and actually go to the gym and feel like you're getting somewhere. So that's super important in that regard. And one other thing that came to my mind as you were talking about that is how women, and it's a lot more complex these days as well, because women are so self-sufficient and whatnot, and a lot of times in a lot of areas they're surpassing men. And that's a problem because women typically don't want to date down, they want to date up. And so women have raised the bar in that regard, and it's put a lot of women in really difficult positions because there's not very many men who share that same standard, or at least a higher standard. And so they kind of date themselves out of the dating pool a little bit. Not to say that they couldn't date down, but the point that I want to make here is for men is to try to grow in every aspect, because a lot of times you can't surpass her in the amount of income that she makes. There's a lot of women who are going out there, they're kicking ass and they're making a lot of money these days. And there's a lot of men that just they can't keep up, or at least with their industry or whatever field that they're in. They just, they are where they are. So make it up in different ways. And one of the best ways to do that is with your body, your health and fitness. Get into great shape, develop your musculature, and offer that to her, because she does need to have that, again, that relief, or at least that safe haven to go to in you, with that comfort and that safety that you provide. And she'll feel a lot safer that you are better in these aspects, and it makes up for that one.
Yes. I get what you're saying, because it's the measure of wealth, right? Is kind of a superficial, uh, element. But what is important is intellectual parity, right? So what I encourage some of my clients to do is to look beyond what's her job, or how much money does she make. It's truly like her intellectual capacities go beyond that. Like you could be, ultimately you can be a homemaker and be a very intelligent woman. You can be in the crafts, you can be a chef, you can be lots of creative domestic things, but be highly intelligent. So a lot of times people are fixated on the job that someone does, but what's most important is intellectual parity. So when we talk about dating up and down, I think the focus is too much on resources, because that's how it was like back in the old days, where marriages were more arranged and it was more specific about dowries and all these different factors that are not really in existence anymore, unless you're in like certain parts of the world. So I try to encourage people to not focus on the dating up based on resources, but looking at the intellectual parity and the strength and the objectivity that a man brings to the table, right? Like the woman should not be the take charge, wearing the pants person in the relationship. The man has to be competent. He has to be capable. He has to be confident. And he has to have that directionality. If the woman has the directionality and the man is kind of floundering, that's when it's a problem. So, if you're in a career and there's a ceiling on the income that you can make, do something else. Have a side business, be creative. I think the worst thing is when a woman sees the man like get sort of hopeless and just sort of give up. That's, as long as he's trying, he's making the effort, he's thinking outside of the box, he's burning the candle at both ends. You don't want the woman to be the one getting a second and third job, and then it's like kind of sitting back and like just twiddling his thumb. So that's the most important part, I think, that's relevant for women.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point, because you don't want to get into the whole comparing resources type thing. Because the reality of it is that there are some women who are just going to out earn men, and you can't just identify yourself with that. That's probably going to be some type of underlying insecurity, and if you have an insecurity, it's going to show, and she's not going to like it. So men have to be able to get past that insecurity, and that's what it is. If we're being honest here, and as long and like you said, as long as you are trying and you're putting forth that energy, that you are trying to level up, you're not complacent. That will comfort her more, I think, than you actually being the breadwinner or things like that. Because I've seen it work both ways. I've seen where there are men who are literally stay-at-home dads, but they have their side projects that they're working on, and their woman is the breadwinner. She pays all the bills, but because he is not insecure, and because he is still handling his responsibilities and business as a man, it works. You're able to make it work, and he's still the leader. But I've also seen where there are men who, okay, my wife makes so much more than me, I'm going to go home and take care of the kids. I've seen that also fail. And that's not a total death sentence to your attraction or your marriage. It's all in about how you handle it. And again, one of the best ways to make sure that you stay on top of that aspect is to get your body right, take care of your body, have that musculature that men should have,
Mhm.
or at least that development that men should have.
Yeah, I can think of a handful or more of our mutuals on different platforms who are kind of in your line of work. They're in exercise, fitness realm, and their wives are more corporate. I know
Yeah.
several of them that come
Yep.
to mind immediately. And it works because they approach it like a team. They sit down and they talk about what are our strengths and our skill sets? What are our opportunities? What's the best plan for our family? Like if you
Yeah.
have kids, obviously before it's just a relationship. And then when you have kids, especially, then, you know, someone might want to do the 9 to 5. So you get the insurance to cover health insurance for your kids and schooling or whatever you want to do. And so when you plan around like what your life is going to look like based on all of that, it's not so much like she's going off and doing her thing and leaving you to take care of the kids, because you've planned this together and it's a
Hmm.
mutually beneficial plan that can switch if factors change. Right. But I think it's intentional, and there needs to be a lot of communication involved.
Absolutely. Because like the ones that I've seen, the examples that I've seen that have not worked out, where the man quits his job, goes home, is a stay-at-home dad. He like, and you'll see this on like Reddit posts sometimes where uh she's not interested in sex anymore. She says that I don't do enough, but I do everything at the house. Like she doesn't have to lift a finger when she gets home. And it's like, okay, well, and I guess this is a question that I could ask you: is where does one draw the line? I mean, I guess we probably need to have a little bit more information in those scenarios. But I'm assuming that that guy probably isn't hitting the gym. Maybe he isn't. I'm not sure. But what would you take a look at, and how would you diagnose?
Well, I mean, I don't know who all is watching and listening to this, but not to be crude, but I think ultimately some of those factors they all go out the window. If the man is confident and if he's strong and physical and he's able to sort of grab his woman and please her, you know what I mean? Like I think that ultimately
Mm-hmm.
it nullifies some of those differences. So if anyway, if you have all of those deficits that we've already talked about, but you're able to, you know, take charge in your personal life, get fit, get healthy, be strong, be confident, right? Then you're able to still be the man in the relationship and take charge of your woman, which is important.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Because I think that's going to be or at least that's a far more prevalent issue today, even than it was 20 years ago. Because you brought it up, like 100 years ago or whatever, was a totally different dynamic than we
Mhm.
have today. And there are certain traditional aspects I think that we need to keep around, but then there are some where it's like, no, we need to do away with that. And uh, people love to pretend that it's like some type of dichotomy where, oh,
Mhm.
it's either the way we used to do it or completely do away with everything we used to do, and it's neither.
Right.
It's a
No.
lot more nuanced than that.
Well, that's why I talk about the sweet spot. It's exactly that, the middle ground, the balance.
Absolutely.
I have
Yeah.
a question here, Matt. I was wondering if I could maybe address it. We could talk about I, what is it? The original animal. He says, I kind of disagree with that one. I think women disconnect from the physical for 100 other reasons. So I'm just trying to understand what his comment is in reference to. I think when I was saying the man should be confident and strong and take charge, um, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are a lot of reasons that a woman can recoil sexually. You know, like she can have her own stuff, but ultimately, if the man, you know, if you are slacking in your area, but expecting her to be, you know, receptive and radiant and take initiative, I think that is expecting too much, right? Like I think and I don't know what you think, Matt, but ultimately when it comes to sexual intimacy in couples, There's nothing wrong with having a more traditional style where, yeah, you want a woman to be sexually receptive, but the man should be capable of initiating sexually with confidence as
Oh
many
yeah.
times as needed. Like, it shouldn't be like, well, let's take turns and you do half the time. And no, like, the man should be capable of taking charge and initiating sexually confidently. So anyway, what do you think, Matt?
Yeah. Well, where do you see the comment? Because
You have comments on your end and I have comments on my end that we don't see each other's.
oh, I didn't know that. I thought that they would kind of pair them together.
Merge.
Well,
Yeah, no. But
okay. So you
yeah,
couldn't
so go
see.
ahead.
So you couldn't see the comment that I read earlier. Okay. Well, that makes.
No.
I guess that makes sense. So what was his comment again?
He I don't think we disagree. I'm just clarifying so that we can get on the same page. Um Basically he's saying the man could do everything and she still allows life to get in the way. Absolutely, I agree with that. Like, the woman can have her own issues, but that shouldn't stop you from doing your best too. I mean,
Exactly.
this is not a conversation to go into depth of sexual dysfunction for women, but more so like what men can do, I think, to improve their relationships in
Yeah.
regards to health and fitness.
Yeah. And I think also one thing uh, that going to the gym and lifting weights and being in good shape, I think one of the things that offers is a cortisol release.
Yeah.
Because cortisol is of course the stress hormone, the body's main stress hormone, and it of course it goes up. Your body secretes it in times of stress, and one of those times of stress that people don't realize is that when you go to the gym and you lift weights, that is a stressful time for the body, so your cortisol increases. But afterwards, there's like a rebound effect where the baseline of cortisol comes way back down, and you feel a lot more calm. You have like endorphins that are released and whatnot, and you have like a more of an emotional center, I would say. And that's an aspect of training because men need to have that release. I think men really do need to have that uh I guess what would you call it, that an avenue to release their aggression, because we do have a natural aggression about ourselves. So what that does when you bring it back to your relationship is you aren't as reactive. um, the things that would typically get under your skin, you'd probably just be like nonchalant about a little more. And that's important because I think when men react emotionally, especially to situations like that, where you start to get down about how she's not interested anymore or whatever. Well, your woman's likely probably gonna tell you no at least as many times as she's gonna tell you yes, and you just have to be like, okay, cool, and that's it. If you react negatively, if you throw a tantrum, which a lot of guys love to do, that's not going to work in your favor. And
No.
so uh it's all about remaining in that emotional center and not
Mhm.
making a big deal out of anything, really. I mean, of course certain things do uh you do want to be a little bit more emotional about, but not as many as men you know make it out to be today. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a great self-regulation tool, right? For men, men and women, but we're focusing on men today. But the other thing is, and this is speaking a little bit to what the original animal was saying, is it's not just about the physicality, but obviously the emotional connection too, right? So this is a way that it's also linked, because the physicality helps a man self-regulate his emotions, and then he can emotionally connect with his partner much, much better, because you don't want to have confrontation, conflict, disagreement, or any kind of stress in your relationship from a dysregulated state. So making sure that you can enable yourself to regulate your emotions through whatever means necessary, and this is a huge one. And so that will help improve your relationships, not just generally, but physically, like the sexual intimacy we were talking about before. So, but one thing I also wanted to mention, just I know we have to kind of wrap up in a few minutes, but men and women are different. Like our physiology is different. So with the cortisol, especially, women do have to be more careful about that.
Yep.
So men's, what do you call it? Like their reproductive system and is built differently. So you guys have more of a daily cycle, whereas women have more like a monthly cycle, obviously. So we can't approach working out in the same way. Like strenuous physical activity needs to be approached differently. So a lot of people don't realize that still, but I think there's a lot more information being shared. So hopefully people will get that. But cortisol is like the worst thing for women to maximize, when they're in their fertile years, trying to be, trying to have children and stuff like that. So you need to be more careful if you're a woman, if they're listening.
Yes, you bring up a really good point, and so I just want to make one important distinction here, because you are right, but it's the difference between that acute cortisol release, which happens when you work out. That's totally fine. It's when that cortisol becomes chronic, and the reason why, and this more so applies to women who are in like chronic dieting situations.
Mm-hmm.
If you're constantly trying to lose weight, being in a calorie deficit is puts the body in a stressful state.
Yeah.
And because your body is in a not necessarily like a I hate to use the word starvation mode, but it's basically where you're just not giving your body enough energy, and it's having to pull from its energy stores. And how it does that is it releases cortisol to free up those fatty acids to use for energy, because you're not giving your body enough energy in the form of food. So with that being said, if you have chronically elevated cortisol levels, cortisol is the precursor to cortisol is progesterone. And both men and women, of course, produce progesterone, but progesterone is a lot more important for women, because, and it's important for men, but it just affects both men and women differently. And women are a lot more sensitive to it for this reason. When you deplete your progesterone, all the progesterone in your body, when it goes to creating cortisol, progesterone also is the precursor to estrogen and testosterone as well. So if it's going towards just producing cortisol all the time, your body's not going to have enough to produce that estrogen and that testosterone. So it's very important for women to spend just as much time not dieting, or at least having enough food. Maybe like, if you're not familiar with dieting terms, we call it maintenance level, where you have your calories that are just at the amount of energy that you burn in a day. So if you need to be in that state, a maintenance mode, just as much in just as much time as you do dieting for fat loss. So if you're trying to lose fat for 12 weeks, you need to be at maintenance for 12 weeks. And that will help to kind of nullify those negative effects for cortisol, because that is very important. It can make it where you're not as energetic, you're irritable. It's a ton of negative effects for women.
Yeah, and I'm sure it goes, really deep, and hopefully, like, do you work with women and men, right?
Both men and women, yes.
Yeah. So
And
you get into all that with them?
Yeah, so basically, and I just started a new fitness community. It's more so group coaching. So one of the things that I wanted to, and Nellie brought this up earlier, I don't know if she's still on here, but she said that she talked to a personal trainer who was going to charge her $3,000 to work with them, and that's quite a bit of money. And there are some trainers out there that will charge that amount. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to offer a way for people to be able to get into shape, to have a plan, to get their questions answered, and to get the guidance that they need, and help surpassing plateaus and all of that at a more affordable price, make it accessible to everyone. So I started this new community. It's called the Fit Federation. Both men and women can come in and join, and you're going to get a training program, specialized training programs, and you're going to get them via an app. And this app is amazing. It has videos that show you how to perform the exercises and everything. You're going to get that. And you're also going to get sample meal plans. You're going to get access to video courses that teach you how to do certain things. And then, of course, you're going to get this community support. So if you have a problem, you can post a question or post about it in the group, and either I or another coach, or maybe a member who's been in the group for a while, can respond, and maybe it's somebody who's dealt with that particular situation, and they can tell you, hey, this is what I did, or I can come in and I can help you, and whatnot. So it allows for you to actually get a plan that works and be able to get results for a very affordable rate. So if anybody is interested in that, you could go click on the link in my bio, and it's the first tab. It's called Fit Federation. And so, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there for anybody who wanted to get things moving. And I suggest getting started before the new year. Go ahead and get started now. Topic. It's when you are in your healthiest state that you're able to offer the best in your relationship. And this goes for both men and women. Not only is it going to help you in your mentality, but it's also going to make you more attractive, which I think is super important to maintain throughout a relationship, especially in marriage, because a lot of times we get in marriage and we just let ourselves go. So it's important to get that established now and to keep it going.
100%. I'm on board with you. Good points, Matt. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. I know
if you're listening to this live or whatever, you're not following Taylor, definitely give her a follow. She's brilliant. She's got a lot of great information when it comes to relationships and dating. So, and I appreciate you coming on here and doing this with me, Taylor. It's always enjoyable to have a conversation with you. I think we always talk about very interesting topics when you come on. So.